The Bazaar of Agrabah, a first principles correction to two-sided market theory. Why the gold coin is in the market and how Caldor Hicks efficiency became a license to spike the dream. Hi, my name is Sarah Trumbull. I am the founder and CEO of the Job Applicant Perspective, the first anonymous user reviews for job ads across the U.S. and the future of HR tech. This comes from my blog post, which comes out once or twice a week. On my Substack, and I put it in video and audio format because, I'm running a paradigm shift and it requires meeting people where they're at in a variety of different formats or spaces. So I'm going to start from the beginning. This is economic philosophy engagement. It's actually very fun for me. This kind of stuff I would do 24/7 if I could. But I'll see what you think. We'll go from there. Bold supposition. I would like to pick a fight with a Nobel Prize-winning paper from 2003 using a Disney movie. This is a first principles argument, so let's lay some groundwork. Reality came first. The description of that reality came second. The red fruit that grows on trees came first. Biology calling it an apple and learning its life cycle came second. Triangular shapes came first. Mathematics using the word triangle to describe them came second. Baseline. Ubiquitous things in the world in every field are easily knowable by the average person. First principles here. The details of why they exist the way they do should absolutely live in 40-page Nobel Prize-winning research paper. But when the average person has to reference a research paper to be sure they're biting into an apple, the whole thing is upside down. Business, like language, came first. Economics, like linguistics, arose to describe it. They rose to describe it, to honor it, to study the mechanisms humans were organically creating. But somewhere in the last century or so, the field of economics lost the plot. I'm not going to lie, I would consider both economics and linguistics to be subsects of sociology, not the other way around. I don't know how other people look at it, but just saying. Here's the claim. Roche and Tiroli built a pricing framework and called it a market theory. Disney's cartoon Aladdin can demonstrate why that's a problem. Who this is for? Business people who learn markets on the ground and never recognize themselves in academic literature because the academic literature was not describing what you were actually doing. I would like to emphasize here the description of markets that I'm about to lay out is not something I was taught in business school or with my economics degree, neither of which I possess or have taken. They were things I was taught on the ground among startup entrepreneurs in a couple of different accelerator conversations, in an accelerator itself, in startup discussions. I was in a couple different startup competition stuff. That's where I learned this. Like the fact that the business people across geographies are teaching it this way, while the economics people are putting policy in a different direction is the problem. So that's what I'm trying to say here. The vertical knowledge, what they think they know, and the horizontal knowledge, two different things. That's a huge issue. Economists and policy thinkers who sense something foundational is often haven't been able to name it cleanly. It is. Yeah, I agree. Lawyers and regulators building antitrust and platform policy on frameworks that may be answering the wrong question entirely. It is, genuinely. Is a marketplace about an exchange of money or an exchange of value? Because here's the difference. When it's exchange of money, you can collapse the exchange of value in order to increase exchange of money. Information asymmetry is a profit stream. When it's about an exchange of value, you cannot do that. Is money an expression of the value that's being traded underneath, or is value an expression of the money that's being traded? That's the question for me. I come down on the answer where I come down on it. But, everyone decides it for themselves. Job seekers, employers, and anyone who has watched a survival market hollow out while experts debated efficiency and suspected the explanation was protecting someone. Again, efficiency around value exchange or efficiency around money exchange, two different things. One creates an engagement trap, the other creates a value exchange. And anyone who has ever sent a drink across a bar, bought a Disney ticket, or tried to hire someone and understood intuitively what they were actually purchasing. This is a first principles argument. No economics degree required. The math is simple. The Disney movie is from 1992. Again, I do not possess an economics degree or a business degree. I'm moving from first principles. My skill is in structural systems theory. There's a reason that I describe myself as a dive bar economist. Back to first principles, the Bazaar of Agrabah. Consider the opening scene of Disney's Aladdin, 1992, Agrabah, a crowded marketplace. Almost everything we need to know about basic economics is contained within. A market is not the customer, it is not the vendor. A market's the relationship between them, the push and the pull, the back and the forth, supply and demand. You can see it in the haggling depicted on screen. Think Disney's Beauty and the Beast. 6 eggs. It's too expensive. There must be more than this provincial life. Yeah, they're haggling. They're haggling. That's the market. That's the market. Like, the market is not a digital gold coin. That's the market. A market is not the customer and it's not the vendor. It's the relationship between them. In the Peace Corps, we used to say, business transcends language. This is where I find economics and linguistics to be so similar. It transcends language. It's a transfer of information. I experienced it myself in Ethiopia, where I don't speak Amharic. I was in the Peace Corps in Tanzania, or in Swahili. I don't know Amharic, right? But I traveled there after I left, and sellers in Ethiopia were happy to sell me a rug in the local market anyway. We used hand signals, smiles, and shaking heads. No words were exchanged. None were required. I like this rug. It's context too. I'm walking through a market on a Saturday morning in Gondor. I'm pointing at their stall, at their rug. Yeah, I like this market. I like this rug. I can pay this much? No, it costs this much. What about this much? Not enough. Okay, bye. Wait. The whole negotiation happened in hand gestures, one of 1,000 market interactions that made up a Saturday in our little corner of Gondor in 2008. A marketplace is the location where the market interactions occur. On the Disney screen, it's Agrabah. It's the location where the buyers and the sellers gather, where each has a relative trust in the location is safe to transact in, that exchanges will be sufficiently legible, that products will be reasonably represent what they claim to be, and that the financial tokens are likely to be real. I mean, to be honest, that there's not too many people like Aladdin running around, right? You know, lovable thief that he is. But this is not complicated. It was never complicated. The gold coin that Aladdin steals or spends, that is the transaction vehicle, the instrument, not the market, not the marketplace, the tool that facilitates the exchange. Saturday evening in Gondor Market in Ethiopia, nobody's there. The market's closed because the market is the people inside of it. 3 distinct things. Most people who have never bought or sold anything know this intuitively. That's why a 7-year-old can watch the picture of Agrabah in a Disney movie and understand what they're looking at, because it's not complicated. Now, don't look, what is the Bazaar of Agrabah in the online era? Think about it. We know this. Don't look at the textbook or the dictionary. What is the Agrabah Bazaar online? It's Amazon. It's eBay, it's Etsy. It's a website now, but it's a location still where buyers and sellers go to exchange goods or services. It's a location where each trusts that the transaction is safe and legible, where they trust they can make informed choices at a statistically sufficient enough frequency that they are willing to continue to engage. Informed choices is the key here. In many ways, the filters of Amazon are the clothing streets of an Arabic bazaar or the mechanic streets. These star ratings are the ghost echoes of other haggling customers captured like a photograph. But it's still just Agrabah. That's all it is. You can go to an Arabic bazaar in Egypt, in Cairo. You can go there anywhere in the Middle East. I've traveled a lot in my lifetime. It's the same thing. It's just in a virtual space. Just in a virtual space instead of geographic. It's owned by a private company now instead of the Sultan, you know? The gold coin that Aladdin would spend in a geographically central locale is the credit card of the online era. It facilitates the market transaction virtually, but it is not the market itself. One-sided versus two-sided markets. Aladdin buys bread and eats it himself. That is a one-sided market transaction. One buyer, one seller. The relationship is entirely between them. Note, this framework works for buying the bread or stealing the bread in Aladdin's case. You're in a negative one in Aladdin's case, or versus a positive, nurturing versus extracting, depending. Aladdin buys bread and gives it to the hungry children in the alley. That is a two-sided transaction. Aladdin is the paying party. The children are the receiving party. Again, is market about an exchange of money or an exchange of value? Because if we're talking about an exchange of value, it's a very clear two-sided transaction. All of the local business people, this is how they describe two-sided markets. Nobody's describing a two-sided market as a digital gold coin, as a credit card. Doesn't exist in the actual on-the-ground business world. And the fact that the economics people are viewing that as evidence of their superiority as opposed to evidence of their intellectual decay is a problem. That makes them worse at their jobs, not better at it. Like, that's evidence of how disconnected from reality are. Math written in biblical frameworks, like, math is not a language of perfection. It is just a language that shares information from one group of people to another. That's all it does. It's not more automatically true if I talk about Santa Claus using math versus I talk about him using English. It's still a hallucination until you are actually grounding your math in reality. So that's kind of where I'm coming at this year. Aladdin buys bread and gives it to the hungry children in the alley. That is a two-sided transaction. Aladdin's the paying party. The children are the receiving party. The vendor is now serving something beyond a simple exchange. He is, whether he knows it or not, facilitating a relational outcome between Aladdin and the children. Ubiquitous things in any field can be easily, instantly understood. The distinction is not complicated. Every single person in the U.S. that survived to age 20 has had someone buy something for them. Or they bought something for somebody else. It's just what it is. This is the difference between a single-sided interaction and a two-sided. Are you hungry or are you generous? That's it. That's all it is. It's not complicated. In a one-sided transaction, the buyer is purchasing for themselves. The value lands where the money came from. In a two-sided transaction, the buyer is purchasing for somebody else. The value lands somewhere different from where the money came from. And the nature of what is being purchased changes entirely because the paying party actually wants is not the bread. It's the experience of providing for someone that they care about or want to nurture a connection with. In any given marketplace, a vendor can specialize in something particular or can be a generalist facilitating all types of market interactions. Some vendors specialize in food and drinks, aka restaurants. Some vendors specialize in types of drinks, aka coffee versus alcohol. Some vendors facilitate both one-sided and two-sided transactions without specializing in either. The bread seller in Agrabah will sell to Aladdin whether Aladdin is hungry or Aladdin is generous. But some vendors specialize in two-sided interactions. The bartender, the jeweler, the florist, the staffing agency, the job board, Disney. These are two-sided market specialists. Their entire value proposition is almost exclusively facilitating a relational outcome between the paying party and the receiving party. What does an event planner do? What is an event planner when a mom hires an event planner for her daughter's wedding? It's not complicated. It's a two-sided market interaction. They are not just facilitating, the value proposition is almost exclusively facilitating a relational outcome between the paying party and the receiving party. They're not just selling a product. They're selling the possibility of a meaningful nurturing of a connection between two specific human beings. Disney knows this. They say it out loud. We don't sell rides, we sell memories. The memory of a child's face on a first visit, the family picture at Cinderella's castle. That is the product. The roller coaster, the teacup ride, that's just the delivery mechanism. The man who sends a drink across the bar is not buying alcohol. He is purchasing the possibility of a connection with the woman across the room. The bartender's job, if they're doing it honestly, is to faithfully deliver the gesture and make the connection possible. The parent, Buying a Disney ticket is not purchasing admission to a theme park. They are purchasing the possibility of joy and wonder for their child. The child is being invited to a magical world via Disney's marketing, no cost implied, because parents is excited to take them there. Disney pre-sold the parents' love to the child before the parents spent a penny. That is what a two-sided market specialist is actually selling. Not a product, not a service, social capital. The possibility of a relational outcome between the person willing to spend money and the person they're willing to spend it on. And this changes everything about what it means for a two-sided market specialist to succeed or fail. What each actor is actually buying, let's be precise about what is being exchanged in a two-sided market transaction, because this is where Caldor-Hicks becomes not just inefficient, but structurally offensive. The paying customer is purchasing the possibility of a positive relational outcome with a specific person they care about or wish to connect with. Not a product, not a service, social capital, the chance to generate something meaningful with somebody else. The non-paying end user is choosing to receive an experience or a service on another person's dime. Within a relationship, the paying party is actively investing it. Floors do not exist because there are sons. They exist because there are mothers that sons are willing to spend money on. Mothers are happy to receive flowers from their sons for the same reason they're happy to receive a child's drawing, because it signals the affection underneath that prompted the gesture. The vendor's job is to faithfully deliver the relational outcome the paying customer purchased, to make the child's experience magical, to deliver the drink across the bar with dignity, to connect the employer with the candidate genuinely. But here's a precondition that economics misses entirely. None of this is possible without pre-existing social capital. I will not accept an expensive gift from a stranger, not because they couldn't buy it, they could, but because there's no relational foundation that makes the gesture legible or safe. How many times in social media do random people send, I will send you $5,000, I'll send you $10,000, how much would you like? Nobody accepts that stuff out of nowhere, very rarely, because there's no social capital. There's no way to make that gesture safe or legible for the person receiving it. They're not going to do it, period, point blank. That's what happens here. Social capital precedes the market. Like a goat path precedes a road, the market exists to multiply it. An economic market is a nurturing thing. It nurtures social capital like water nurtures the physical environment. Like failure to recognize that the physical environment existed first before you needed to water your grass, like you needed to have grass towards needed watering. Yeah, which means a two-sided market specialist is not just selling a product or a service. They're operating inside a pre-existing web of human trust and connection, and their job is to honor it, facilitate it, and ideally grow it. Yeah. I mean, you can't guarantee it. Just because I buy a drink for somebody across the bar doesn't mean she's going to accept it or he's going to accept it, whoever it is, But it means that I'm trying to nurture a connection. That's what I'm trying to do. That's the whole purpose of the engagement. Disney doesn't exist because there's rides. It exists because there's children I'm willing to spend money on. Children I want to make their lives magical. That's why Disney exists, because of the social capital I have with my children. A market exists to multiply social capital, but it instead erodes it. It's not just failing, it is consuming the very precondition of its own existence. That's not just inefficiency. That's not a market correction waiting to happen. That's cancer. That's cancer delivered with a power asymmetry. Why Caldor-Hicks is offensive here. Caldor-Hicks efficiency says it's economic bullying. That's all it is. It says a transaction is justified if the winners gain enough that they could theoretically compensate the losers, even if they never actually do. As long as the aggregate looks positive, the outcome is deemed efficient. I'm not going to speak to a broad argument about Caldor-Hicks in all sorts of marketplaces as a general framework. Smarter people than me have debated that for decades, and I speak to what I can speak to. Two-sided marketplaces. Two-sided marketplaces is my specialty. What I'm comfortable saying clearly is that in a two-sided market, relational by its very nature, with a paying customer and a non-paying end user, Caldor-Hicks is specifically structurally offensive because it's always going to end the same way. Caldor-Hicks logic enables a specific and documentable informational betrayal, and it matters to name it precisely. Here's why. The vendor in a two-sided market extends a promise of trust to attract the paying, non-paying end user into the transaction at all. The woman accepts the drink because the bar she is in, she has a baseline of trust in. The job seeker applies because the platform presents itself as a legitimate marketplace. The child goes to Disney because the marketing told them it was safe and magical. The trust is not incidental. It is the mechanism of entry. Without it, the non-paying end user doesn't participate and the transaction doesn't exist. When the vendor then knowingly allows harm to come to that party, whether through active choice or willful indifference, they are not just being inefficient, they use trust as the entry mechanism and then betrayed it. Whether the vendor is the one doing the harm or simply the one allowing it, the result is the same. The woman who accepted the drink in good faith was harmed by the very trust the bar created in order to seat her. That is not an efficiency question. That is a fraud question. The product being paid for in the market was the nurturing of that connection. The thing being sold to get the woman into the bar at all was the trustworthiness of the bartender. And the Akerlof completion makes the market consequence inevitable. The vendor doesn't need to betray every interaction, every transaction. They only need to betray enough. The moment women learn that some drinks at this bar arrive compromised, they stop accepting drinks from anyone. Not just from bad actors, from everyone. The man's genuine gesture becomes permanently suspect. The bar loses its function. The market for connection collapses, not because all drinks were spiked, but because the trust once broken at sufficient scale with sufficient frequency cannot be assumed by anyone, especially when the market experts are actively blaming the women for the drinks that arrive spiked. You should choose better. How do you say male loneliness other than women should choose better instead of men need to be held accountable for their actions? That's how you say male loneliness. Just male loneliness that I'm not going to take accountability for. Like, that's it. That's talent shortages too. It's the same concept here. The same dynamic at play, this Caldor-Hicks efficiency in two-sided markets. Planned obsolescence for human connection. It doesn't need to be every dude, every employer that's doing this, every vendor that's doing this at all times. It just needs to be enough with no institutional player coming out against it. With no institutional player actively going to bat on behalf of the workforce, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Everybody knows. The man's genuine gesture becomes permanently suspect. The bar loses its function. The market for connection collapses, not because all the drinks were spiked, but because the trust once broken at sufficient scale cannot be assumed by anyone. You don't need to corrupt the whole market. You only need to corrupt it past the point where trust can be assumed. Check the research. Akerlof. I list Caldor. I list Rochelle Thoreau. I list myself, A Job Market for Lemons, The 3 Rules of Online Job Seekers, and also category error in the talent acquisition industry. To my mind, this is a category error in economics in general, too. The job applicant perspective, everything in this piece has argued points towards one structural conclusion. When a vendor cannot be trusted to protect the non-paying end user, as basically every HR tech platform can't be trusted. When the platform has no incentive to honor the relational outcome it is being paid to facilitate, the only people who actually can be trusted are the people inside the market itself. Not the platforms, not the regulators moving slowly behind to harm each other. This is a digital hostage situation in the online job market where they're legit high-fiving each other over having created a national converging equilibrium. Just flabbergasted. The market has run for 25 years on planned obsolescence. Applicant tracking systems actively describe themselves as connecting employers to the top 5% of talent. I'm just so embarrassed for them. By their own words, That is a system designed to generate revenue by preventing 95% of the workforce from achieving the outcome they entered the market to acquire, while simultaneously depending on that same workforce's engagement to exist at all. How to say that employers have thrown you under the bus any harder than to see them buying into applicant tracking systems like this? How to say the public policy has thrown you under the bus any harder? They are generating revenue from your unpaid labor while actively promoting that they're preventing you from acquiring the goal you came to the market to acquire. Like, the disconnect from actual reality is off the charts. And the idea that job seekers should trust you while actively having bought into that for 25 years and no one saying jack about it. How do you even justify that to yourself? Like, how to say Nash non-converging any harder, collapsing an economic marketplace for human survival for profit. Just flabbergasting. The workforce already knows this. They have been telling each other which listings are real, which employers ghost, which processes are genuine, and which are theater, indirect messages, in Reddit threads, in whisper networks that exist precisely because the official market gave them no legitimate service to speak on purpose. Genuinely, delusion is won over the feedback of people that it cannot integrate. Delusion or marketplace won over the feedback of the people it cannot integrate, but definitely impacts. Just hollowing out economic survival for profit as a win. Markets do not describe the exchange of money, they describe the exchange of value. Exchange of money markets will be characterized by identity assassination of large swaths of people you've never met, because the focus in an exchange of money market is control of the information flow. The focus in exchange of a value market is symmetry of the information flow. That's how it is. I see no way around it. I'm very dysregulated thinking about the errors here in this thinking. The workforce, the job applicant perspective exists to make that signal legible at scale, not to replace the market, to restore the feedback loop the market lost when it moved online and decided the non-paying end user's experience didn't need to be measured. Genuinely forgetting what a two-sided market is. I thought I was joking. I genuinely think people don't know what a two-sided market is in the field of economics. Like, genuinely. Like, wow. Like, you can ask a florist. Disney knows. The florist knows. The fact that the academic doesn't know isn't a compliment to the academic. In a two-sided market, a market very openly about the relationship, the non-paying end user's experience is not a feature. It is load-bearing infrastructure. It always was. Conclusion. The Bazaar of Agrabah works because both parties believed the exchange would be honored. When that belief erodes, the haggling stops, the vendors pack up, the marketplace hollows out, low higher, low fire. My goodness. Just digital hostage situation any harder, captive, unpaid workforce for the profit of people that feel entitled to their disrespect and impoverishing them. The lack of respect I have for this approach is off the charts. Here's the claim revisited. Rashay and Thoreau built a pricing framework and called it market theory, and in doing so distorted economics' ability to advise anyone on anything in the online era. But the problem really isn't just Rashay and Thoreau, let's be real. I will fail every test of perfection, just like they would have, just like anyone would have. The problem is that an entire field accepted a pricing framework as market theory without anyone going back to first principles. And let's be real, it was never on any academic or pair of researchers to be perfectly right. It's not in the Nobel Prize committee to be perfectly right. Nobody's required to be perfectly right. Academia should never be about perfection. It is about commitment to question, to reflect, and to learn. Grounded reality, grounded updates. We're not waiting for platforms to fix this. We are building the thing that makes the market legible again. As Uncle Iroh in Avatar says, the last airbender, it doesn't matter who started a conflict at a certain point. It only matters if we choose to end it. At a certain point, the question of blame becomes less urgent than the question of repair. You have to stop the fire. It doesn't matter who set Yellowstone on fire. It matters if we're trying to put it out. You have to be willing to shoulder, to do the emotional labor. Like, a market based on, like, Financial markets based on money are not more profitable. They just require less emotional labor. Markets based on value can be far, far, far more profitable, but they require you to do emotional labor. That's all. It requires employers to do the emotional labor of having to earn their reputation instead of feeling entitled to receive it without any value extended whatsoever to the workforce. It requires vendors to do the same. They have to earn their emotional labor. It's the same as Alexander Hamilton said back in the day. You cannot erase a debt. A trust debt doesn't go away like that. Social capital and economic capital function so entirely similarly. You have to assume the debt, acknowledge the debt, so the union gets, the market gets a new line of credit, a financial diuretic. How do you not get it? We're aggressive and competitive. The market gets a boost. You'd rather give it a sedative for emotional, like for economic survival, aka food, clothing, shelter, and healthcare? Why would you want it to be the other way? What would be the value? Emotional labor will not kill anyone. It's how we repair a market, how we make it better again. We can do this. We can always have done this. The internet made the world into a snowstorm. The way we trust, the way we repair this, we start trusting the people on the roads, you know? Anyway, that's the sell. I know it's bold and audacious, but also, I mean, true is true. So Amazon is Agrabah. It's what it is. The filters are the streets. A digital gold coin was never a two-sided market. Buying food for someone else was a two-sided market. One-sided market, are you hungry? Two-sided market, are you generous? That's what it is, you know? And all of the theories in the world just need to go and study how that works, you know? Just like you study an apple that way. You study the life cycle. You study the life cycle of markets that way. That's the way. So anyway, the job applicant perspective, anonymous user reviews for job ads across the U.S. I speak in Detroit on this topic on the 10th. I'm excited to have public speaking engagement in this regard. I got invited. It's very exciting for me. And also check out, been quoted in Fast Money Now, a magazine, regards to the doom loop that was started with the ATS system 25 years ago. But yeah, it's an exciting time. Paradigm shifts. It's very exciting. Stay tuned and stop by. Excited to see everyone and see where we go with all this. Cheers.